Welcome to Permission to Shine, the space where high-achieving women like you come to peel back the layers, overcome what's been holding you back, and rise into your most authentic, powerful self. I'm your host, Sharice Bisram, inner power activation leader and intuitive healer, and a woman who knows what it means to look like she's thriving on the outside, also while feeling disconnected on the inside. This podcast is here to remind you, you didn't come here to just perform, you came here to lead with your soul. Your obstacles, they're invitations to expand. And your power, it was never outside of you. It's been waiting within you all along. Each week we'll dive into honest conversations, healing insight and soul-led strategies to help you stop self-sabotaging, reclaim your light and lead your life, your business and your relationships from deep-rooted truth. So if you're ready to rise with grace, softness and fire, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, my loves. It has been a hot minute since I've jumped on the podcast, and the reason why is because I've been so busy delivering events, workshops, retreats, emceeing, talking, speaking, breakdancing it, you name it. I've been there and I've been doing it, and it's been really wonderful to get back into flow. I feel like I've been speaking to you all about how this year obviously is a 9 years, lots of falling away, and as a byproduct of that, I felt like things have felt slower for me, and I think with good reason, to be honest. Like, it feels like everything's kind of recalibrated. And so at the minute, there's a really hot topic in every industry, whether you are a business owner, whether you're someone that wants to be a person of influence, whether you are just wanting to live your life from a place of just being able to speak your truth. Because I know so many women literally bite their tongue or sweep it under the carpet because that's the way they were taught to do it. There is something really key here about speaking that keeps coming up everywhere I go. And I feel like because I'm in these rooms, obviously it's topic of conversation. But what I can see from being in this space and from being in this space for a long time as well, there's a real key difference between a good speaker and an outstanding one. And so today I really wanted to give you my tools and tips that I use. And I say I use, I really am just being myself wherever I go, right? And I think that in itself is what really transforms the audience and builds that real deep connection that I think a lot of speakers haven't quite mastered yet. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best there is and that's it. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there's definitely something about the way I deliver that transcends past just speaking to people, right? And I feel like it has been one of my gifts most of my life, because even in a micro level, like not on stage, when I speak to people in the street or when I connect with someone that I haven't seen in a long time, I just have this same energy wherever I go. And so I really want to give you what I believe that is and how you can find that within yourself if you are looking to, whether that's build authority in your workplace, in your home environment, in your life, or on stages. I really do feel like this is going to be unconventional, maybe it's something you already know, but I just think the way that I'll say these things will make a lot of sense to a lot of people. So yes, I want to show you how you really can embody your message, tell your story, and connect with an audience on a deeper level. Because this is the thing, right? When I only started officially emceeing this year for events. I've always hosted workshops. I've always obviously spoken on stages and been a dance teacher before all of that. So really and truly using my voice has been very natural to me. And a lot of you know, if you know my story, that I grew up in a volatile household and in an area that wasn't culturally diverse. So the choice was always use your voice and speak up and say what you got to say and break the cycle so people don't go on to keep repeating that, or be a victim to circumstance, keep myself small and keep people talking badly to other people, which is not what I wanted in my life. So for me, I really do feel like speaking up and owning my power is obviously the most integral piece of all of this, because yeah, I didn't necessarily silence myself in that degree. Now, I had silenced myself in other ways with, people pleasing and saying the thing I thought people wanted me to say in terms of like, yeah, the people pleasing side of things. You expect that, oh, if you do things this way, people will like you, that type of thing. That was definitely an old narrative for me as a teenager. And then as I got into my 20s and I sort of experienced lots of death, I kind of dropped that whole act. I stopped caring as much about what people thought. But then the people I did care about, I then was overcompensating. So I know a lot of you will be able to resonate with that cycle because, hey, we're women. It's all we've been taught, right? But there's definitely a clear line between saying something with conviction and it being clear to really resonating with people and for them to feel that energy from you. And I feel like that is the part that I have mastered. And it's interesting because I've been around a lot of speakers in the past few years, more so than ever now. And I think anyone can just relay a good speech, right? Anyone can just memorize what it is they've got to say, present it to the audience, and, know the cues, when to pause, when to add humor, all of those things. I say people know that. Some people don't know that. And this is another thing that I just want to add as a caveat is that I think a lot of people are thinking that being a speaker or speaking on a stage gives you authority, but it only gives you authority if you're good at it. Yes, I paused for drama because what I am seeing is a lot of people are wanting to speak and then standing on stages, and it just doesn't serve them in their highest degree. And it's absolutely okay to acknowledge that for yourself and say, hey, you know what? This isn't my thing. And that's okay. Like we're talking a lot about now how being introverted or being shy is also your superpower. So lean into that. If you're not someone that naturally wants to stand up and speak in front of hundreds of people, don't. You know, what I'm saying is, I want everyone and every woman to get to a point where they can just say what they need to say. So, if you're in your family home and all of your family's arguing, you do have the answer and you just don't say it. That I hope that through being in my energy, and obviously if you were to work with me, that this would be something that we would absolutely address and would be something that we would be able to completely dismantle. And it's something that I've worked through with my clients over and over again. And even they are shocked with the fact that a lot of the time we build this thing up to say the thing, but our energy in itself creates the opening. So sometimes you don't even have to say anything because your energy is there. And this translates to being on the stage too. When we're in that proving energy, people can feel it. You think about when you go to a show or a concert and you're watching your favorite artist, when they are having fun and living their life and just engaging the audience, isn't it the best thing ever? But then when you watch a bad show with people that you can feel like don't want to be there, you can feel that too, right? It's the same with being on stage. That if you don't like being on stage, people can feel it. Let me tell you. So that is your number one step for the beginning of this kind of stage I'm going to walk you through. Number one is, if it's not your thing, you don't have to do it. Yeah, you just don't. So I hope that gave you permission for those of you that are thinking, oh, yeah, this is going to be the way I'm going to go forward with my business and my life. You don't have to do it that way. I promise you. Okay. There'll be other ways. You can use a podcast. You can create online content. You can make a YouTube channel. There's other ways for you to build, yeah, authority in your brand and things like that. But coming back to you as a human being, again, it's like now I know a lot of people. I was about to say Gen Z, but it's not even Gen Z because I've got some friends that won't answer the phone. So they'd rather have like a WhatsApp back and forth or a voice note than actually answer the phone. And it's annoying when you're outside their house and they're not answering their phone. You're like, come on, just answer your phone, right? And I think a lot of people have said, oh, it's because I can't be bothered or I don't like it. But really, if you ask yourself, what is the reason why? Is it because you don't want to say anything? And again, this comes down to this kind of anxious connection that we have with speaking our truth. Like it's so easy for us to make excuses and to do a text instead or whatever. But actually having a real conversation in real life makes a world of difference. So if you are someone that isn't comfortable speaking on the phone, this is another test for you to kind of challenge yourself. Because if you do want to, again, speak on stages, speak up at work, speak up in your family, but you're not answering the phone, that's the first sign of like almost self-betrayal, really, because you're trying to tell yourself that you want to feel and be more confident in this arena, and then you aren't doing it. Because this is everything I talk about, right? Self-trust, and it comes in steps. This is why I know the word consistency, people don't like it, but that's the only way you build up to it is the repetition. So if you feel like the word consistency feels masculine or a little bit encapsulating, I want you to look at it as, at the gym, building reps. You have to keep doing the thing over and over again. You can't lift one weight and all of a sudden become a bodybuilder, right? It's the same thing with building confidence in speaking. You have to keep doing it over and over again. And actually, like I said at the beginning, sometimes it just isn't for you, and that's okay. But answering the phone, that is something that we should all be able to give ourselves the permission to do. Yes. Now, there is layers to this because trauma comes into place. Like if you've had an abusive partner that used to ring you a million times, or a parent that was like really hard on you for that reason, there might be other reasons why you don't want to speak on the phone. Maybe you don't know who's calling. You don't have to answer to everyone, right? I'm saying to your friend that wants to speak to you, right? And that's just a challenge. That's just a little caveat on this because, again, I'm talking about speaking on stages, but reflecting it back to your life as well. How you do one thing is how you do everything. My first mentor, Rebecca Barr, told me that, and it's forever stuck with me because I'm like, yeah, absolutely that. And actually, like I said, I am that way all of the time. Like when you see me on a stage and you see me in Asda, I'll be exactly the same. You could see me in Morrison's or M&S as well. Just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. But that connection to yourself and your self truth is everything. So I really want you to ask yourself in this, like, who am I? Because if you are someone that doesn't believe in themselves. Now, I know so many successful business women that don't really know themselves. They're wearing the label of being the business owner or the label of being the mum or the wife or the caregiver, whatever it is, but they don't know who they are on that core level. Now, for example, like I said, if you're an introvert, you might be like an introvert extrovert. So you're a great teacher. You love speaking when it's in a talking environment, maybe in a mastermind setting or a small group. You're really happy with that. When it comes to a bigger stage, it's not for you, right? Get clear on what that looks like for yourself. Because again, when we understand our strengths, it makes it really easy to then use that in every area of our life, like I'm saying. But if you are someone that does want to build up to a stage level, start by expanding that. You're speaking to this group all of the time. You can start to then ease into bigger audiences because you already know how to talk to people. But then, when you think about speaking as a speaker, people are thinking about the format, like I said, the cues, the way that you have to introduce yourself. There's all of these like psychological elements that make up a good talk. I want you to throw out the window. Really and truly, now, if you're listening to someone on the stage give you a talk, I know how robotic it feels and sounds when people are following that format. And I don't like it. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. And you might feel otherwise. Like I'm not from a corporate background. I'm not. So my view on this feels very different. But equally, what I know for sure, and I always tell everyone this, I am an expert in people and how I want to be spoken to and how I want to speak to people comes down to the real core fundamental levels of being human, which is we all want to feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. So if you are giving me a rehearsed robotic segment of each story, again, in my industry, the line that gets me every single time is, and then in that moment, everything changed. It wasn't in that moment. It wasn't. It was a build up of everything, your whole life, right? And that irks me because, again, I think for me, that speaks so naturally and connects with people on such a natural level, I feel like we're making it inhumane. So, No wonder that a lot of women that want to speak on stages are afraid of it. It's because there's so much to think about. It's like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. That shouldn't be like that, right? If you really want to connect to an audience on a deep level, you have to connect with yourself first, as I said, and then relay your story from a way that is from your heart, right? When you're having a conversation with your friends on a smaller level, when you're having a group conversation with maybe ladies you work with or your work environment, and it's just no pressure, you're just all chatting, you're absolutely fine to tell people what happened at the weekend or what you did on your holiday, right? Why can't business or work conversations be exactly the same? Because like I said, I'm exactly the same version of myself on stage as I am right now talking to you on this podcast, as I am, if I went and met my sister for a coffee, it'd be exactly the same style of conversation. I'm not thinking about the pauses, the drama, the thing, because I'm just being human. And that's all people want to hear and feel. So, what I'm going to urge you to do is practice. So, if you are um, wanting to speak on stage and you're following the format of which someone said, so for example, if it's you start with what is your reason why. So, you want to help business owners find time freedom. That's quite a common one in the business space at the moment. But the reason why is because maybe you had a corporate career, you were constantly burnt out, you wasn't spending time with your children, and you then your marriage was on the brink and you realized something had to shift, right? So that in itself is a really deep and meaningful thing, right? And so many people relate to it. But you have to speak from your heart on that. And if it goes a bit waffly at times, it's better that it's true and waffly than you trying to be a pre-rehearsed version of yourself. You can literally say, whenever I'm talking about anything, I'm always speaking from actually what happened. I'm not trying to give you a polished version of anything. And this is the thing, right? We're all looking for perfection and we're searching for it and this polishedness, but that doesn't exist, right? And that's not how people want to be spoken to. They don't want to be in that space where you are talking at them. They want to be like, for example, when I'm giving a talk, I always ask the audience in between, like, oh, I'm sure you can relate. Or I'm sure so many women in this room feel like this right now. And then I'll wait for their cue. I'm generally having a conversation with them. And sometimes I ask them to respond. And sometimes I ask them to put their hand up. This is how we build connection. But it always starts with ourselves. And when you feel safe in yourself, that in itself is the energy. I know for a fact that my gift in my life is to create safe spaces for women and girls and people, right? I say women and girls because that is my, target area of the people that I did work with. But in any space in the world, when I meet, funny enough, my friends' partners, when we go for like group dinners or drinks or whatever, and then end up talking to someone's husband, they're always like, oh wow, I've never told anyone that before. And then I'll have like an open conversation and end up giving them like some advice, life advice, because again, I create this opening for people to feel really safe. And it's yeah, lovely. So I'm not trying to say that I don't do that for men too. For anyone that's listening and feeling like, wow, that's unfair, not that anyone would, but just disclaimer. So I think that the real thing, obviously, and the reason why is because I never felt safe and I didn't want anyone to feel the way I felt. So everywhere I go, I just have this open heart to these spaces. And again, like this is something that I've had to develop through my healing. And if this is something you don't do and you can't do, then this is the invitation to really drop me a DM and let's have a conversation to see where these gaps are. Because when you feel safe in yourself, everyone else will feel safe around you. And equally, when you feel confident in yourself, everyone will read and feel and know and connect with that confidence. That is something that goes beyond words. And this is, I think, as well, what makes me really great at what I do is because I read the cues in the room. Like if the audience look tired, I'm like getting them out of their seat and I'm saying, right, let's go. It's time to build the energy, right? But not in a forced sense. It's like, let's build up to it. I'm not saying that we've come after lunch, you've sat down and you're all feeling like full up and tired, the worst thing I could do at that point is get you up and dancing. I have to ease you into it. So I'm going to start by doing some bit of somatic work, maybe shaking off the things that no longer serve us very delicately. Maybe we start by doing that in our seat. Maybe we start by asking ourselves a reflective question and we build up to it. And then by the end of that kind of whole segment where I'm getting you to stand up, shaking things off, then we can start to build movement. Then we can start to invigorate ourselves. And I can do that through doing visualizations and meditations, doing some breath exercises or again, somatic movements, and obviously, of course, the dance stuff as well. But it's the cues, and this is where your understanding of humanness and people meets your natural tools. So if you are an NLP practitioner or an EFT practitioner, use it in your talk. If you are a breathwork expert, use it in your talk. My friend Jessie Luke, she's a breath expert, and she always does some breathing with people when she's delivering, and it's so wonderful. There's really key elements that you can give that you do. If you have a signature business thing that you do, I don't know, maybe it's 3 parts, and you can get people to look at whatever it is. I'm just going to give you an example. Maybe it's observe, apply, expand, for example. It's like, okay, this is my 3 steps of my business thing that I do. And it's like, I want you to look at your life right now. Where are you in this moment? Like, observe what's around you. What can you see? What can you smell? This is also grounding, by the way, just giving you a clue here. Um, and then, like maybe it's go and talk to someone next to you. This thing, tell someone your big dream, tell someone what they, what your dream is, what your goals are, what your dog's name is, like this is just getting people out of their rut. And then the next thing, expand, like maybe it is run across the room and speak to someone new, like all of these things you can deliver in your talk, right? Now, as a MC, that's so valuable because these things are you can't plan for it. I don't know any MC that can plan everything to a T and do it because it's just not natural, even as an event host. When I was delivering the retreat last week, that is completely different energy to delivering on stage for Soul Speaks, for example, right? The 2 events that I had at the same time. And so the retreat, everything was about getting the women back into their bodies, back into their connection to themselves and keeping their hearts open, right? Then at Soul Speaks, it was a combination of keeping their hearts open, keeping them grounded, but also keeping them like in this exciting energy because they want to learn, they want to be around other people. It's exciting to be alive, like there's so many different levels to this. And actually, in fact, I probably do a lot of that in the retreat centre too, but in a different capacity, right? You know, and I think when you curate spaces based on who you are, they transcend better. I'm not trying to go into a 5-star Michelin hotel and deliver silver service to the Queen. Do you know what I mean? Or the King. That's not going to be my vibe. I'm not going to go in there and teach those staff about how to have etiquette because that's not what I do, right? So this is another reminder. You have to be specific. What is your thing? What is your vibe? Like for me, I bring the energy, I bring the soul connection, and I bring the embodiment piece. So my audiences will always transform and go on a journey with me because I'm grounding them into their bodies. I'm keeping them open to receive and opening their hearts. I'm energizing the space as well, right? They are feeling my energy and we are getting out of our heads and into our bodies. That's the embodiment piece. So I know that in every event I do, that will always be the staple. So if I was to go into a 5-star hotel, I would deliver that to the waiters, to the service staff, because they then will feel more passionate about what they do. Even the management is like, okay, how can I be of service, right? Allowing them to come into that heart space. What's going to make me the best version of myself for the people that I meet and serve? And that's exactly how I feel about speaking. It's like, taking people on the journey of what that looks like for them on an individual level and as a whole room. There's nothing more powerful than a group of people coming together in celebration. It's important to reflect, and that is something that I do throughout the sessions. It is something that they have the capacity to have a cry for if they need to. And again, I create the safe space for them to do that. And there were some tears, and it was really beautiful in each session. And then I uplift them and ground them back into their body so they can leave, right? And so I guess really I'm kind of giving you a kind of insight on what it is I do and how I do it so you can find what that looks like for you. Please do not do what I'm doing because unless you are the same character as I am, you won't be able to do it the same, right? And then you'll be compared to, and you don't want to be compared to, so you have to do this your way. Yeah. And I say that as a side note because I am seeing that. I am seeing people um talk about embodiment and all these things, which is their work. They do that too. But if they haven't been a trained professional dancer, don't get people out of their seat in dancing unless you are confident to dance on stage, because you have to do it too, right? You can't just say, all right, up you get, do it. That's like, it's like when I watch teachers and they're like, right, you have to do this now. No, 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 we're doing it together. We are doing it together. So you cannot tell people, oh, I'm going to put the song on, you're going to dance. No, no, no. We're doing that as a community, right? So anything that you do, you have to go first, right? I call myself a leader for that reason, but equally for you, they're watching you. And this is my thing when I come back to this at the really core level of everything I do, is that I always knew I was going to be a role model. I always knew that. So I was aware that I would have to lead spaces. And so it's no different when I'm at an event. It's very much the same thing there. And that is the part where people see you as different, right? You're not just saying the thing or talking at people, you're with them on the journey, you're taking them with you. When I go into a meditation with the audience, I do close my eyes too, and sometimes I have to keep them open and closed, obviously, because I'm keeping the room safe and making sure everyone's okay. And obviously for me, with my spiritual gifts, I'm able to send energy to the room. So if there is someone in the room that needs like a little bit of extra love or care, I'm able to send that, right? But again, that's me listening to my gifts and what's good for me. So play to your strengths. Okay. Play to your strengths. I mean, that's going to be number 2 on our list, but actually, that probably is the most important one more than anything, right? And with that, I guess 2 and 3 is own your story, right? Own your story, own your gifts, and tell it from your heart. Because no one, like I said, wants to hear an over rehearsed version of that. No one. And this is where I guess we come into this feminine and masculine energy way. And maybe I'll make this 3. So speaking your truth and your story from a place of understanding the emotional cues, which we kind of said, that is where the feminine and masculine are going to do a dance, because you want to teach, right? You want to teach people what it is you do, and potentially you want them to walk away with something that's tangible. So, um, tangible in the untangible sense. So, for example, like you want to shift their mindset, or you want to give them one takeaway on how they make more money, or you want to, I don't know, give them ideas of how to um, repot their plants, right? Whatever that looks like. And I'll go into what this looks like on a human level as well, not on the stage. But this is where the feminine and masculine have to work together. Because when you stand in embodiment, that's your feminine piece, right? You're grounding yourself in your body. You're energetically holding the space of yourself and being open, keeping your heart open, but using your authority, which is, again, activated from your feminine space. But the clarity on how you say it is the difference, right? So we're telling people our story, we're taking them through that journey, we're building the connection. Once the connection you feel is built, that's when you can go into switching the gear to delivering. And this is where it'll be, the work you actually do, teaching the lesson. And so we go from having this really fun and like lighter connection to like, okay, this is where we get serious now, or this is what I want you to take away. And the tone of voice just shifts just a tiny bit. And I don't want you to overthink that, but what I do want you to think about is times in your life where it happens, right? For example, the kids. You're all having a lovely Sunday afternoon and everyone is like running around and being silly and having fun, but then starts to get to dinner, bed and bath time. The kids are still in that wild state and it's like, right, come on, dinner time now, we have to sit down. Yeah, there's an authority shift, and it's not about screaming at your audience, it's not about shouting at anyone, but it is about owning your power and commanding the room in that sense, because you're owning your power when you tell your story, but it's coming from a different space. right? It's coming from your heart, coming from the opening there. When you go into the command element, that's that masculine energy. That's that, I want you to walk away knowing this, right? And they're going to dance together. It's not about thinking feminine, masculine, but it is a dance between the two. And I think understanding your voice and how you deliver things is really key in this. You know, for example, like when I gave a speech at my best friend's wedding in the summer. And everyone started chatting in between the speeches. And so I just made a joke and I was like, right, everyone, I know you've heard enough of me today, but it is my turn, so I'd like you to have a listen now, please. Thank you. So it just made a joke and then bring everyone back into the room again. So it doesn't have to be like, I'm talking now, listen to me. It can be funny, right? And again, when you're telling your story into this section, there won't be a break where you have to bring the audience in. It will just be that you'll switch the dial internally to know that, right? So it's understanding our own voice and how we do shift our gears. Because when you practice these types of things, and again in conversations, you know, at work, you could be talking to someone in the office about your holiday and all the things, and then they might say something that's a little bit disrespectful about someone in your family, and then instantly you're going to shift from, yeah, so I was doing all these things, it was really nice, and blah, 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 to, hold on a minute, that's not what I said. Can you see the difference? It's light. It's not a massive difference, but if someone did really offend you, you would say, excuse me, don't speak about my family like that. You know, you could just change it in slight ways. And I hope this is making sense, because you understanding your voice and the way you deliver is a superpower. Because some people put on a voice when they talk and it's something they're not aware of, and it's really, really strange. Yeah. So some people do this, like for example, if I was to be a speaker that was performing to be someone else, I might try and speak a little bit more posh. So I might be really posh in the talking, and then it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a real, if I start talking to you all like that, you'd be like, what are you doing? And that reads to the audience. So this is why I'm saying it. It's like everything I'm talking about here when it comes to speaking, whether at micro level, in your workplace, in your home, you know, like yes, it's cute to do the baby voice of the kids. I'm not talking about that one, but do you know what? If that is part of your character too, to do voices, include all the voices. Like I sometimes, when I'm talking about things being crazy and I've done something wrong, I'm like, oh, and then I did this thing, and I was like, you know, like I add those bits in because it's human, but I'm not putting on a non-version of me, basically. And this is where I want to look back to. It's like when you're comfortable in being yourself, it is felt on stage. And this is where the safety element comes to. This is like, you know, when I talk about in my work about nervous system reset and calibration and all that stuff, it literally is about just feeling safe in your mind, body, and soul. This is what it comes down to. And people feel it. I've said it before a million times that people can feel authenticity, honesty, and safety. And if you can create that in a space, I promise you, the shift in your audience is going to be through the absolute roof. And you will find that people not only see you as an authority, but they see you as someone that they can connect to. And then you automatically become different to every other person that they put on a pedestal. And what I mean by that is that, you know, for example, I'm trying to think of someone that's of influence at the moment. Let's say Stephen Bartlett. Stephen Bartlett obviously knows his stuff, knows lots about lots of things. And if he was to talk about business in a seminar, it'd be really of a great thing. You'd walk away thinking, wow, yeah. But what's the difference between you and Stephen Bartlett, apart from the fact that he's a multimillionaire? I mean, he's a man, right? That too. But nothing. You know, we're all human. We've all been through our own story. There's all a reason why we've connected and we know people that way, in whatever way they are, but they're human at first. And so, if you want to be known as a great speaker in parallel to Stephen Bartlett, right? Then you just have to be you. And I know that so many of you are like, but I don't know how to be me and do the thing and all of the things. But this is where you're differentiating yourself. You're saying that I'm this person and the speaker me is something else. You need to merge the two together. And this is where I was saying at the beginning, if you can't have a phone call with someone that you don't know or someone you do know, that's a sign that you don't feel safe to speak, right? If you can't speak up in your family environment or, maybe a work meeting or something there, that's a sign that you don't trust your voice, right? So everything I'm saying here is that when you own your power, you can then speak your truth with clarity and conviction and ease. And this is what it all comes down to. With so many women, we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe in ourselves. And it is a long journey, when you do it on your own and you feel like you have to keep jumping through hoops, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? There's so many things that you can do to get yourselves into your body. And this is the space that I create, right? Like, whether it's an audience of hundreds of thousands of people, whether it's in a small environment or a group, whether it's just a one-to-one with me, every time I work with a woman, I give her the permission to, one, obviously shine, but to be her full self. And that really is what shining really means to me. I talk about that all the time, about this permission to shine, the shininess. But even with me, like the confidence that you see on the outside now, it really is felt internally and everyone else can feel it too. Whereas when I was younger, it was a projection. And again, when you're performing on stage, I say performing and not leading from your heart, that is also felt. You are not on stage to be an entertainer. You're on stage to build connection, community, conviction, and all of the things. So I really want you to think about that for yourself in every element of your life. And sometimes we speak for the sake of it. I've got friends that don't like silence, so they speak in the gaps. That in itself, I'm sure there is a study done that says that people that can't sit in silence are not very confident. And so, honor the pauses. When you're having a talk on stage, you don't need to keep rambling in the gaps. You can hold a space and just allow the audience to come with you. And I love doing that because that is a moment where they get to think and they're like, oh, is she going to keep going? Is she not? And I'm not doing it in a way that's untimed, like it feels natural. I'll ask them, like, what's your intention for being here today? And give them a moment to think about it, right? It's these little things that make the humanness and the connection. And when you're holding space in that gap, it doesn't feel uncomfortable. But like I said, in life, you have to build that comfortable space for yourself first. And when I'm recording this now, it's actually Scorpio season, which is all about home. Like especially for me, it's creating a home inside of myself. Like that's really yeah, the Scorpio energy is like safety and yeah, kind of similar to Cancer really. It very much is that kind of like how do we build that safety within ourselves? Because otherwise we feel like we've got to protect ourselves, right? And we don't want to be in that energy. That's not the right space to be in. So I hope that you can kind of see now why it's important for you to, one, own your story, right? Own your story. What have you been through? And again, one of my mentors said to me in the past, you have to speak from the scar and not the wound. So if you're still moving through something, a domestic violence relationship or a hard time at home or someone's passed away, you have to be really, really comfortable in yourself to be able to deliver that in person because your emotions will get the better of you anyway when you're on stage because you're anxious or nervous. So even in the micro level, we're not on the stage. If you're going into work and you're going to be having to have a hard conversation on a day that something else has happened, maybe do it another day because you need to ground yourself to come back into your story and your truth, right? So own what's happened to you. Yeah. And again, this is all of my work. So if you're listening to what I'm saying right now and you're thinking, gosh, I'm nowhere near this, drop me a DM. I've got lots of spaces for you here where I can work with you and we can, one, get your speech up to scratch and get you feeling confident to talk in front of people. But most importantly, get you comfortable in yourself, really heal. My process is understand what's happened to you, accept it, release it, and rebuild it. This works exactly the same with your talk, right? Same space. So it's understanding your story, owning it, right? Owning your story, feeling safe within yourself. Yeah, that is like the number one, feeling safe in yourself. Creating that energetic connection with your audience as a byproduct of you feeling safe within yourself. and add in your magic, right? What is the parts of you that you're good at? Like I said, if you're a yoga practitioner, add the yoga in. If you're um I don't know, a magician, add magic in. Like there's so many different elements that you can add of your own zone of genius into this space. And again, just to reiterate, if speaking isn't something you're comfortable with and you do not want to do it, but you feel like you have to because that's what you do to build authority, don't do it, right? Don't. If you feel like you want to talk because it's something you want to challenge yourself for, to be more confident on stage, or just get more opportunities that you feel like will come from being on stage, that's a different reason. But you have to ask yourself, why do I want to speak on stage? Is it because everyone else is doing it? You're not 5 years old. Yeah, you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Okay, I promise you. And I say that with love. So, what makes a good speaker an outstanding one? Someone that can connect with people, make them feel safe, seen, heard, valued, and understood. Someone that can convey their story and their message and their teaching with clarity, conviction, truth, love, and respect. And ultimately, a human that knows other humans and wants to create meaningful change, impact, something more than just authority, right? And I hope that lands with love to you and gives you the permission to say, hey, speaking probably isn't for me, or it is for me. And if you're on a micro level and that you're just listening to this and you have no intention of speaking, but you're thinking about how it applies in your everyday life, it's having that real conversation with yourself right now to say, where am I holding myself back of building that self-trust with between me and my voice? Where am I not owning my power so I can't speak my truth? Because that's ultimately the key. When you own your power, you will then be able to speak your truth with such ease. And that's such a beautiful segue into something really exciting that is coming soon in January. And it's going to be an in-person experience. I haven't done anything in person the whole of 2024 for myself. I've always done it for other people, or been hired or whatever. This particular thing that I'll be hosting in January is going to be solely mine, and it's going to be on the 22nd, I think, of January, because obviously 22 is my birth date anyway, and it is a master number. And I just feel like, yeah, we're going into the year one. The day is the 22. So yeah, I'm going to call it She Rises the Experience. And I'm so excited. And it really is about this. Own your power, speak your truth. So if you want to hear more about it, if you want to join the wait list, I'm going to pop it on the end of the show notes. So yeah, I'd love to kind of tell you more about it. And obviously that more to come. More will come from this space for absolute sure. So yes, really excited to kind of, share and deliver all of that good stuff. Really excited for next year. I feel like we've all had a real turbulent 2025, a year 9. We're all embracing the endings, but I think we're really ready for a new evolution of ourselves, of our businesses, of our home lives, of all of the things. So I really do feel like this is a beautiful invitation and a time for me to really, hold the space for you and show you all of the things I'm talking about, be it on speaking, be it on your own personal power. I really feel like now's the time. So I'm sending you so much love and light. And again, if you love what I'm saying and you want to connect with me more, I do have one-to-one options available if you want to work with me on that level. Or I have my Inner Power portal where we do our moon rituals, and we do connect with movement and all of the beautiful things. And again, just a really safe space for you to come home to yourself. I'm sending you so much love and light, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please do comment as well what you feel like you've learned from the episode. It's really helpful. And if you can rate it on a 5-star review, I would be so grateful, because that just means that more women get access to these teachings within the episodes. And also, who would you like to be on the show? DM me and let me know. And please do share with a friend that you know needs to hear what's in this episode today. I would also love to invite you into my Inner Power portal, because that is the space where all of my meditations are, all of my activations, and I host 2 live sessions per month that do include movement.
and my spiritual downloads and all the beautiful things that I offer all in one space. Plus you get to ask me any questions that you have. So I'd love to see you in there. Have a great week.